Alright, so we start our story off around the 3rd grade Ninja War era where we see Minato basically becoming known throughout the 5 nations as the Yellow Flash, and he would also be known for having these specific eyes. Specifically, these eyes allow him to copy any jutsu, and he actually did this to the Raikage. Instead of just teleporting and blitzing him and embarrassing him, he would use his own technique against the Raikage and actually overpower him with his own technique. So basically him just embarrassing the Raikage even more than he did in canon, and honestly I think Killer B here would just try and retreat, since that's what A would want, and not to mention Minato just bopped the Raikage, who should be stronger than Killer B at this point, at least in terms of physical strength. And this would just lead into Minato becoming the Hokage probably earlier, and the attack on Konoha would then ensue, with Minato actually being able to defeat Obito in this scenario. You know why? Because he could just use his own ability and actually adapt from it, because that's what Adam does. So he could literally use Kamui and basically just make it a better version of it. Imagine Kamui along with the Flying Raijin. And yes, Kekkei Genkais or blood relations, none of that is going to stop these Eyes of the Lord. And so in this timeline, we have Minato surviving, however Kushina would probably die giving birth to Naruto, and Minato would then seal Kurama inside of Naruto still, and just promise to raise him and make sure Kurama doesn't go out of control. With this would then lead into Naruto being held to a pretty high degree in the Leaf Village. Instead of him being some low-class scum, Naruto is actually a little bit of an Boruto situation, where everyone knows him for being the Hokage's son. And Naruto does understand that he is this, but he wants to become his own icon. But it's not going to be in a lame way that Boruto does it. No, he's going to be doing it through hard work and determination, and promising to himself, and even his dad himself, that he will be the greatest ninja to have ever lived. And this would mean even greater than Minato and even the other past Hokages, which Minato would laugh at, but Naruto would say, "You're laughing now, but just wait." And this would then lead into Minato then saying, "Alright son, let's get back to training." Yes guys, Naruto is obviously going to be going under training because he does have the Nine-Tailed Fox sealed inside of him, meaning he's going to be a pretty big target. And since Minato is alive and in charge, he's going to be training Naruto and making sure he knows how to protect himself from, ninja that would want to try and sweep up and try and take him. Even people in the Leaf Village, some people would probably try and sneak Naruto maybe at night, but Naruto would obviously, be trained enough so he would actually not get into that situation and actually body that person. So this would then lead into Naruto not only learning basic taijutsu and basic chakra control like water walking and tree walking, but we would also get Naruto harnessing his eyes. More like trying to harness his eyes, because Naruto can't actually use his eyes. Oh, y'all thought I was gonna give Naruto the power at the beginning? Psych! Nah, but anyways, this would then lead into Minato trying to come up with ways so that Naruto can unlock his eyes, but Minato would say to Naruto maybe he needs some kind of, moment to trigger this, transformation. Not to mention Minato would tell Naruto and clarify to him that it's probably going to be pretty overwhelming on Naruto for the first time he actually, maintains the eyes for more than a few seconds. At most, Naruto is probably going to be only able to copy one move, and that's if the move isn't overwhelming on Naruto's chakra. This would then lead into Naruto coming to the realization that he has a lot more work to do than he thought, and he would just simply keep on training hard. I think here I'm going to let Minato actually hold back Naruto for at least a few years so that he can actually catch up on training and make sure that he's ready out for the ninja world. And this would then lead into Naruto kind of getting a skill advantage over most Genin, because at this point, Naruto should probably be classified as a Jonin. This would then lead into Naruto teaming up with Sasuke and Sakura, and also being led by Kakashi. Minato would probably set that up. Naruto in this timeline is going to probably be aware of Kakashi and who he is even before his introduction as their instructor, because, Kakashi and Minato have such a close relationship. Kakashi and Naruto have had to have met, at least during Naruto's 13 years of life. So anyways, Kakashi would introduce himself while Naruto would introduce himself, and instead of saying he wants to become the greatest Hokage, he just says he wants to become the greatest ninja. He doesn't want to be like his dad, who's a Hokage and everyone looks up to. And then what if Naruto has a kid and then basically that kid goes through the same thing as him? which Naruto doesn't want. He just wants to be a legend, essentially, which would then lead into Naruto establishing that to Team 7, and Sakura and Sasuke's whole introduction would be the same. We would then get the bell test. Yes, there isn't going to be Mizuki trying to, manipulate Naruto, because that's just simply not going to happen, and if anything, Minato is probably going to beat Naruto to it and beat up Mizuki. So that's not going to happen. Anyways, we would then get into Kakashi versus the rest of Team 7 during the bell test exam, and Naruto wouldn't just, rush in and attack Kakashi before he starts. He would wait for him to start, and then Naruto would keep his distance, summoning 2 shadow clones on his left and right side, and he would then summon those shadow clones to basically go and charge at Kakashi, basically to test the waters and see how he fights. With this, Naruto's shadow clones would be trying to tag team Kakashi, and they're actually keeping up with him pretty well. However, Kakashi is relatively above these clones, and he would show Naruto's superior skill and swiftness. Naruto would then analyze this, and he would then proceed to then summon more shadow clones. He would actually summon 12, specifically, 6 on his left and 6 on his right. At that point, he would then tell the shadow clones to basically swarm Kakashi, where we would basically see Kakashi kind of being a little overwhelmed, and Naruto kind of tagging Kakashi from time to time, but he's not going to be able to take the bells because Kakashi is just moving too cautiously. This would then lead into Naruto having no other choice but to actually think outside the box. Naruto would then dig a hole to where Kakashi is, where he would basically surprise him from the ground and basically grab his foot. This would then lead into the shadow clones trying to grab the bells and Kakashi. However, Kakashi in the nick of time would then reveal his Sharingan, and with his precognition and extra reaction speed, he would quickly react to all the Narutos, and he would then use a lightning AoE attack to basically scatter all the shadow clones away and electrify the real Naruto. At that point, Naruto is down for the count, and Naruto would then be tied up to a pole, while Sasuke and Sakura would suffer the same fate as to how they did in canon. I think in this timeline, Sakura would actually willingly give Naruto her lunch because she actually has nothing against Naruto, and Naruto is actually, not the immature brat that he was that Sakura hates. And honestly, if she had to choose someone that wasn't Sasuke, Naruto would be that guy. Which might be in Naruto's odds because Naruto still would have a thing for Sakura. I don't see why not. The only difference here is his motivation and powers. I don't think his, crush that he had as a 13-year-old would change. Anyways, Team 7 overall is just connected a lot better, and Naruto and Sasuke would probably still have a rivalry, with Naruto not being as immature or getting under Sasuke's skin as much. Granted, they would butt heads, but Sasuke isn't going to be trying to call Naruto an idiot half of the time, because this time, Naruto is at this point probably smarter than Sasuke. But that's besides the point. We would then get into the 1 month gap where they would basically learn teamwork, and Naruto is just going to be training with Minato whenever he's not around Team 7. So honestly, Naruto is just going to have such a big step ahead amongst his Team 7 members, which would then lead into Sasuke trying to request to Kakashi to maybe teach them about chakra. And I think here we can maybe have Sakura and Sasuke learning the whole water walking and tree walking earlier, since Naruto already knows it. And whenever Naruto and Minato are training alone, Minato is actually trying to teach Naruto his main technique, the Rasengan, which is something that Naruto really wants to learn. He knows that this is his dad's main technique. Naruto can't wait to learn something like his dad, however he's going to be using it in his own distinct way. And this is going to be shown later on, you'll see. But currently Naruto is trying to use the Rasengan similar to how his dad does it, and it's not working. And Naruto has the steps down, but he just needs something to basically compress the Rasengan. And this would then lead into Naruto coming up with an idea with his shadow clones. We would then transition into the beginning of the Land of Waves arc, which Naruto would just easily fodderized the Demon Brothers, effortlessly, and he wouldn't even get scratched or poisoned, so we wouldn't have that kunai speech or whatever. Rather, it's just Naruto saucing on 2 Chunin. Now, for the Zabuza encounter, I feel like Naruto is going to be sticking with Tazuna and letting Kakashi try and handle everything until he would then get trapped in the water prison, and this would then lead into Sasuke and Naruto tag teaming with each other, but instead of Naruto basically becoming the Demon Wind Shuriken and throwing a kunai, he would basically become the Demon Wind Shuriken, summon 2 shadow clones who would then propel off the real Naruto and launch themselves at Zabuza, and this would then lead into the two shadow clones making a Rasengan. The one Naruto outputting the chakra in his palm and the other one compressing it while they're literally charging at Zabuza. And the Rasengan would be incomplete, but it would be enough to basically send Zabuza flying and release Kakashi. Zabuza isn't dead, so he would retreat, and Kakashi would collapse due to exhaustion, which would then lead into Team 7 heading to Tazuna's house. Now, Team 7 probably wouldn't train, so they'll just wait until Kakashi feels better, and they would probably leave early to go to the bridge site, which potentially could lead into the bridge being a lot more complete, but honestly I don't think it makes a difference, as Haku and Zabuza would then arrive onto the battlefield, with Sasuke versus Haku being similar, and then Sasuke and Naruto being stuck in a similar situation to how they did in canon. Like in canon, the two would be overwhelmed by Haku, and Sasuke would end up sacrificing himself to save Naruto, which instead of activating Kurama's chakra, he would activate something different. Yeah, you guessed it, Naruto has activated the Eyes of the Lord. This would then lead into Naruto completely copying Haku's jutsu and making an ice mirror dome inside of an ice mirror dome, with Naruto's being a lot more powerful and him actually overpowering Haku's and trapping Haku in his dome. This would then lead into Naruto barraging Haku similar to what he did to Sasuke, and like what he did to Sasuke, he's going to do to Haku. Naruto is not going to hesitate in this timeline. He believes what he did to his friend was wrong, and Haku's going to pay for it. At that point, Naruto would finish off Haku and finish the deed off and kill him. As for Zabuza, he's pretty much killed off by Kakashi, if not by Naruto, because he would just be bloodlusted and probably fuming, and basically use the last of his chakra to maybe kill Zabuza, but I'll just let Kakashi do it. We then get Gato and his men arriving onto the bridge site, and Tazuna's relatives would probably be killed, as they were probably going to be killed in canon if it wasn't for Naruto, but since Naruto isn't there, they're just dead. Anyways, Tazuna would be the only one left in his family, while Naruto and Team 7 would finish off Gato and his men and avenge the Land of Waves. This would then end the Land of Waves arc, with time passing a little bit after the Land of Waves arc. Basically, it's around the time where the Chunin exams would then begin to actually, begin. And this would then lead into Naruto being pushed by Minato and Kakashi to the limit, because, he wants to try and become a Chunin, and this is one step closer to becoming a legendary ninja throughout the land. His main goal is to basically win the Chunin exams pretty easily and basically just remain on top, no matter what. No one's gonna stop him, not even Sasuke. With that being said, we would then get introduced to the Sand Trio, who actually takes interest into not only Sasuke, but Naruto. And by the Sand Trio, I mean just specifically Gaara, who would say that they both look interesting, and he looks forward to seeing them in the Chunin exams. And this would then lead into Naruto saying to Gaara that he's going to defeat him, and then Sasuke interrupting and then saying, "No, I'm going to defeat him." And then they would begin to bicker until Kakashi would then finally arrive, and he would give Team 7 their little test to see if they're ready for the Chunin exams. And they would pass this test pretty easily, leading into the Chunin exams. They would check in, and like in canon, Rock Lee would actually arrive, and before Team 7 could check in, Rock Lee would like to fight not only Sasuke, but Naruto. The reason why is because Rock Lee wants to show off that hard work beats, natural raw talent, because Naruto is the son of the 4th Hokage, and Sasuke having the blood of the naturally talented Uchiha. Anyways, he would then challenge them to a 2v1, which would then lead into Naruto and Sasuke actually working together, with Sasuke revealing his 2 Tomo Sharingan, and Naruto revealing actual good control over the Rasengan. They would both rush at Rock Lee at high speed, with Sasuke being easily reacted to by Rock Lee, while Naruto would actually be a little bit more difficult for Rock Lee, but he would barely manage to get out of the way. At that point, Naruto would then turn around, and he would see Rock Lee to be somewhat interesting. Naruto at this point would then try and launch a bunch of shadow clones, which nearly catch Rock Lee due to this Naruto having superior speed in comparison to his canon self. But this just isn't enough because of Rock Lee's just naturally higher speed gap, and Rock Lee would then proceed to use the first gate on Naruto and trying to finish him off with the primary Lotus. But Sasuke would try and intervene, but even then, Rock Lee's just too fast for Sasuke, and then my guy would intercept and punch Rock Lee in the mouth and apologize for Rock Lee's act. Naruto is literally terrified right now, as he was about to get slammed into the ground by this bowl cut nobody, bushy brow bum. But nonetheless, Rock Lee would apologize, and Naruto would say that they'll finish it off in the Chunin exams. Anyways, they would check in, and we would then move on to the first round of the Chunin exams, which is the exam. And honestly, I don't see Naruto really changing in this scenario, like how he operates, how he did in canon, because of the challenge. And I think, like in canon, Naruto would basically say how he'll never give up, and this was basically just a test all along, and Naruto would pass without even answering a single question. We would then move on from the first exam to the Forest to Death, and like in canon, they would eventually encounter Orochimaru disguising as that female, and this would be a weird situation because when Anko would basically try and report this and get this out once she realizes Orochimaru's in there, Minato is going to lose it. So I'll just say here, Anko, when she realizes Orochimaru is actually in the Forest to Death, she would then immediately head out to the Hokage office and summon Minato, who would use his body flicker and flying Raijin to basically move on over to the Forest to Death, move on over to where Orochimaru is, and basically teleport seemingly right then and there. He teleported right as Orochimaru was about to bite Sasuke's neck, so he came in the nick of time and actually intervened and stopped Sasuke from getting the curse mark. Orochimaru would smirk, and Minato would basically turn around and make sure Team 7's alright, with Naruto just getting done using Kurama to stop Orochimaru's big-ass snake. Naruto would collapse due to exhaustion, and this would basically enrage Minato. Minato is not going to condone this anymore, and this would then lead into Minato throwing a kunai at Orochimaru, which Orochimaru would easily dodge. But Minato would basically teleport as the kunai is passing by, and he would basically sneak attack Orochimaru, hitting him in the face with the point-blank Rasengan. Orochimaru would turn around in shock, allowing Minato to basically slam a Rasengan in his face and send him flying. Orochimaru would just be getting slammed, and he wouldn't even escape in this timeline. Minato would make sure of it, and basically beat Orochimaru to the point to where his regen is very slow now, and Orochimaru is basically barely recovering, but he's still alive. And this would then lead into Orochimaru putting him into a jail cell where he's guarded by the highest of level elite Jonin and Anbu, and basically a prison that is built for someone like Orochimaru and other S-class ninja. He's not gonna get out. With that being said, this would mean that the whole Konoha Crush plan wouldn't even happen due to Orochimaru actually getting imprisoned and bopped by Minato. And with that being said, we can actually have a normal Chunin exams being progressed. Team 7, I'll just say, makes it out alive, and they don't encounter the Sound Trio, and they would probably just find the Heaven and Earth Scrolls. We'll just say they find it similar to in canon. And with that being said, we can move on to the third round, which would lead into Sasuke bopping Kabuto's men, along with Naruto absolutely pummeling Kiba into the ground. However, when he sees Neji brutally beating on Hinata, he promises to defeat Neji in battle. And Neji would say how his eyes of the Lord don't even compare to the eyes of the Hyuga. At that point, this would then lead into the rest of the Chunin exams matches playing out similar to in canon, and Naruto going on a training arc, but not with only Jiraiya. I think here, instead of training with Ibisi for a little bit, Minato would actually introduce Naruto to Jiraiya and basically establish to Naruto of who Jiraiya is, and this would then lead into Minato and Jiraiya and Naruto basically going out for a month and training with each other, with Naruto not only learning basically everything that he learned during the 1 month gap with Jiraiya, but also a little bit of control over the eyes of the Lord. The thing is, Naruto needs to have much more chakra control. He can't just, rage out and hope the eyes would summon. He needs to be cool, calm, and have control, which Naruto would basically learn over the 1 month gap. Techniques that would actually allow him to calm down and actually control his chakra better, like meditation, which is something that Jiraiya actually does. Anyways, with this training, I think Naruto just barely can control the eyes of the Lord for at least a minute. And Naruto, before going into the Neji fight, would say to Jiraiya and Minato that a minute is all he needs. He would proceed to go down into the arena and he would face Neji head on. This time, when Neji reveals his Hyuga techniques, Naruto is able to swiftly dodge with the QB Amp, which he actually summons right off the get-go, and this would then lead into Naruto summoning the Eyes of the Lord. Naruto would basically copy Neji's entire style, and he would face Neji head-on with his own Hyuga combat. Neji would say to himself how it's almost like he's fighting a mirror image of himself, but this image that he's fighting is even better than him. And this would then lead into Naruto outskilling Neji with the Hyuga style, and Naruto then trapping Neji with the crystal ice mirrors. Yeah, he basically used a similar technique that he copied back in the Land of Waves, which was Haku's, and surrounding Neji in this ice mirror dome. Naruto would then say how it's over, and he would strike at Neji from all the mirrors, and basically just blindsiding Neji, but he's blindsiding him with his own Hyuga style, so every time that Neji's trying to hit Naruto, Naruto's just blitzing and slowly negging all of Neji's chakra points, which would then wear Neji down, Naruto removing the mirrors, and finishing Neji off with one final dropkick. And he would then say how that was for Hinata, and Naruto would then be declared the winner. Now, I'm going to say here Sasuke arrives late still because Kakashi and Sasuke had to do some last minute prep time for the Chunin exams. And luckily they make it in time, and Sasuke versus Gaara would then commence, with Sasuke making Gaara bleed and making Gaara go slowly insane, which would then lead into Rasa personally stepping in and actually trying to stop Gaara himself. This would even lead into Gaara spurging out, but before he could try and hurt anyone, Minato would quickly teleport him and Rasa over to a nearby forest, not too far away from the Chunin exams, but far enough for them to, settle this. And we would then get Rasa subduing Gaara and apologizing for his actions. Now, with this, we would get Gaara not being friends with Naruto and Sasuke, really, but just kind of I don't know, I guess a weirdo, but the only thing I guess happens that's different here is that Rasa's alive and Rasa's embarrassed by the end of the Chunin exams. The Gaara incident did escalate, but it didn't escalate to the point to where the Chunin exams has to be cancelled, so we would still get the Chunin exams. And I think here the last matches would be Rock Lee versus Sasuke, and whoever wins that would face off against Naruto. And I'm going to say here, throughout most debates that I see amongst this topic, like with Sasuke versus Rock Lee, it usually ends with Sasuke having the better scaling to Gaara. So I'm basically going to say that Sasuke would probably defeat Rock Lee before he even gets to the 5th gate. So a lot of people aren't, too contentious on this. But regardless, we would get Naruto versus Sasuke, with Sasuke using the Sharingan and Naruto promising not to use the Eyes of the Lord because he doesn't want to use that against Sasuke. Sasuke would say that he's probably going to need it, and this would then lead into Naruto versus Sasuke scrapping similar to how they did on the rooftop fight, but the implications are obviously a lot different. Naruto and Sasuke are actually having a lot more fun in this match, and it's a lot more positive than negative, instead of Sasuke, being edgy and forcing Naruto to fight him. However, this fight would then come to a conclusion once we see Naruto versus Sasuke rushing at each other with the Chidori and the Rasengan, but Minato would intervene along with Kakashi, saying that if they would have clashed, they both would have probably lost their arms. Naruto and Sasuke have basically worn each other down, and after that Chidori and Rasengan, rush at each other, they have already wasted an extreme amount of chakra, and they're at their last leg. The last punch would then be decided with Naruto and Sasuke rushing at each other, and Sasuke connecting the final hit. But it would then be revealed to us that he actually hit a shadow clone. Then, from right under Sasuke, the same technique he tried to use on Kakashi, he used on Sasuke. And with the element of surprise, Sasuke is then buried into the ground, and Naruto has won. Naruto would be declared the winner, and he would be promoted to the Chunin title. And with this, the rest of the arcs in part 1 don't really happen. The Tsunade retrieval arc doesn't happen, meaning Itachi never really interacts with Naruto, which means Sasuke never knows that Itachi's even there in the first place, which means Itachi and Kisame are only shown throughout the Kakashi, Kurenai, Guy, and Asuma fight, and they would just dip from there. And since Orochimaru's in prison, there's no way for Sasuke to go down this path of evil, which means Sasuke is actually going to be staying in the Leaf Village and training with the likes of Kakashi, while Naruto would stay inside the village and train with Jiraiya from time to time, but Jiraiya just likes exploring a lot more, so I would figure that he would actually not really train Naruto as much, and Minato would actually take the role of actually training Naruto. We could say Jiraiya stays in the village during the 2.5-year gap, but I'll just say Jiraiya goes off after training with Naruto for a little bit, and Naruto mainly trains with Minato and learns the ways of the Eyes of the Lord. and it actually works to the point to where he's actually able to use it in combat similar to how Minato uses it. Since Naruto got promoted to Chunin, he basically had a lot more responsibility, and especially with the Akatsuki thing going down, Naruto has a lot of unhidden potential that he needs to tap into quickly or else it'll be too late. I'm going to say here, Naruto is actually able to master his Atom Eyes, especially since he has Minato there to mentor him. With Minato's presence, I think it's easy for Naruto, way easier than for him to train by himself for the next 2.5 year gap to basically master these eyes. And with this, Naruto is able to copy not only one ability before collapsing, but multiple. And Naruto can actually control himself to a point to where he won't exactly collapse. At this point, he's basically transitioning into his Atom point in the series. And what I mean by this is Naruto is at a point with his abilities to the point to where it's actually similar to how Atom uses it in Record of Ragnarok, to where he isn't going to be collapsing after using it once, or is able to copy things pretty casually at this point. And with this, we obviously have Naruto increasing in basic physical, prowess, because, he is training with the 4th Hokage for the next 2.5 years, who is stronger than Naruto. So, by the end of the 2.5 year gap, he's not only physically superior to his base Shippuden self, he is also, in terms of hacks abilities, way stronger. And I would think Naruto's reaction speed in specific would be way higher than his Shippuden self, considering the fact that he's training with Minato, who's all about speed. And maybe you could have his base speed being stronger, like his combat speed and travel speed, but regardless, he's still physically above his Shippuden self. And while this is going down, Sakura would be training with the likes of Kurenai, since she's not going to be training with Tsunade, since that arc never even happens entirely, so she'll just enhance her Genjutsu. And while that goes down, Sasuke would be training with Kakashi, and like in my other what-ifs where Sasuke would be training with Kakashi, he really only increases in terms of physical prowess, his lightning abilities, and he would have the 3-Tomo Sharingan, and Kakashi would be at the same level, but just physically stronger. Now with this, we would then move into the Kazekage rescue mission, where we would have Rasa alive and Gaara in this timeline as well. Now with Gaara not getting Takano Jutsu'd by Naruto or any of that, this Gaara probably wouldn't be the 5th Kazekage, but rather the Hokage aide, or Kazekage aide. And this would then lead into Deidara and Sasori heading into the Sand Village, and Deidara would capture Gaara in this timeline. However, in the process of trying to capture Gaara, Rasa would actually manage to damage Deidara pretty heavily, and while he's about to capture Gaara, and seemingly he would, Rasa would use the last bit of his chakra to finish off Deidara. Similar to my other what-ifs of Rasa surviving, we would have Sasori come in, kill Rasa, and take Gaara away. And with this would then lead into Team 7 having no other choice but to go out and try and stop them from capturing Gaara. And since there's no medical ninjutsu Sakura here, this would mean Kankuro would probably die, and as for the retake of the bell test, Team 7 would just pass away easier than in canon. Now, we would move on to the Itachi clone and Chiyo being recruited onto the team, where we would have the Itachi clone being defeated by Naruto and Sasuke working together, and he would be defeated way earlier than in canon. And with this would give them actually a lot more time to go out and try and figure out where Sasori is extracting the Biju from Gaara. And since Deidara isn't there, the extraction process is going to be a lot slower, meaning Gaara isn't going to have his Biju extracted in this timeline. Rather, what would probably happen is Team 7 would basically pull up to where Sasori is, Naruto would just break through the barrier, and we would then get Sasori getting jumped by Team 7 and Chiyo, which I think they would be able to handle it, given the fact that Naruto is not only faster and stronger. We have Chiyo in this timeline able to basically counteract the whole puppet thing that Sasori's doing, and we could just have Team 7 just off-guarding him unironically. Or we could maybe have, I don't know, Naruto just copying Sasori and copying his basic stats, which would allow him to basically, scrap with him, and then allow Chiyo to distract him with the puppets. And when we get into, Sasori's little weakness thing with the chest, I think Kakashi here would actually use this to his advantage and actually Kamui the chest thing that Sasori has, instantly killing him. And this would mean that the second Akatsuki member of the art duo would be finished and Gaara would be saved. However, because Gaara still has his Biju, this makes him still a target for the Akatsuki. And with this, there's not going to really be anyone in the Sand Village that can, eventually just take out all of the Akatsuki. Like, Gaara is going to be inevitably kidnapped again, so he needs to be, a lot safer. So I'm going to say here, instead of Gaara going back to the Leaf Village, we would have Chiyo become the 5th Kazekage, since I think it kind of fits appropriately here, since she is probably the strongest one in the Sand Village. That's not Tamari or Kankuro, or I guess Tamari, since Kankuro is dead in this timeline. So I think Gaara is going to be taken to the Leaf Village and is going to be guarded by not only Minato's High Elite Jonin, but probably Team 7. Like, I can definitely see after this encounter, Gaara and Naruto can maybe bond with each other a lot more, and I think Gaara would actually change in character, and where we would get the change in character from Gaara in part 1, we would get it here. And now we can move on to the rest of the Shippuden arcs, which honestly are either the same or just don't happen at all. For example, the second Sasuke rescue mission doesn't happen at all, and Orochimaru would be in prison while Sasuke is also good, so it's just not gonna happen, like, at all. And as for the Kakuzu arc, the first half would happen the same, and instead of just only Kakashi going out with Team 10, it would also be Sasuke. And I think when Naruto wants to go out and help out his friends, Gaara would like to come along too, because he doesn't want to stay back and just, be the guy that people need to protect. And since Naruto is basically in the same situation as, Gaara should be allowed to go with Naruto. And when Gaara makes this point, I think Naruto would allow Gaara to accompany him and Naruto would arrive onto the battlefield, where Naruto would copy Kakuzu's exact style. So basically, when Kakuzu would shoot out like a fire migraine jutsu combined with wind style that would seemingly kill Team 10 and Kakashi and Sasuke, Naruto would actually copy Kakuzu's hardening jutsu and basically eat the attack. As this happens, Naruto copies Kakuzu's jutsu and is prepared to throw it right back at him, but in reaction, Kakuzu is ready to block. However, Gaara would then come out of nowhere and actually tag Kakuzu with his sand paralysis, which would basically leave Kakuzu vulnerable for Naruto's next attack, which would overwhelm Kakuzu and destroy the rest of his hearts. If not, if that attack wouldn't do it, then he would just spam Kakuzu's jutsu. That's essentially just his, like, literally Kakuzu's jutsu, but just better, so it wouldn't matter. Regardless, Kakuzu is going to inevitably be killed, and the immortal duo of the Akatsuki would also be defeated. I know y'all heard that screaming in the background. They fucking scream one more time. Anyways, yeah, we would then move on to the Jiraiya arc, which I think is pretty much similar to in canon, except Minato and Jiraiya are the ones talking, and Jiraiya would go out and face Pain, die to Pain, and this would then lead into Naruto training out on Mount Myoboku. For Jiraiya, of course. And while this goes down, we would have the Pain Assault arc. And as for the Itachi arc, I'm going to say here that it doesn't happen at all in this timeline. It's just kind of impossible for this to happen, and normally in my other what is, I write a way for this to work, but for this timeline, I'm going to say it's not going to happen at all. So this means Itachi is going to be sick for, whenever he gets capped, but he's not going to die as early as he did. And with this, we would then move on to the Pain Assault arc, where we would have Pain attacking all of Konoha, and this would even lead into Minato dropping down into the battlefield and actually giving Pain the work. Now, Minato is a lot faster than Pain and could easily knock him out due to how much faster he is, meaning that Pain can't perceive him, which means the Renegon can't hard counter him. And with the likes of Kakashi, Choji, and Choza there, who were damn near close to defeating the Diva and Asura Path, plus Hiruzen as backup, and if they need to, maybe free Orochimaru for some more backup and then lock him up after the assault, it's just honestly in Konoha's favor, and I think inevitably with Minato's help, they'll be able to defeat Pain even before Naruto arrives. And if Naruto arrives with the Atom Eyes, it's going to be over. And just in case if you guys forgot, Minato has the Atom Eyes as well, or the Eyes of the Lord as well. So he can theoretically make shadow clones and make his own 6 paths of pain and counteract Pain, but with stronger and faster paths of pain. And if you want to say Naruto is required, then you can just have Minato and Naruto doing the father-son duo and wombo comboing Pain even before the Chibaku Tensei is even released, or even before Hinata died. Now, personally, I would like for Hinata to establish that she does love Naruto even after the Pain Assault, so we can maybe have their relationship blossom, unlike in canon. And with this, we would have the 5 Kage Summit, which would happen differently because Kisame would be the one sent out to go kill Killer Bee, and since there's no distractions, Killer Bee would die. forcing the Raikage to call a Kage Summon. And Obito would use this opportunity to declare the Fourth Great Ninja War. And with this, we would have the war being prepped up, and not only Naruto being held at bay, but also Gaara, because, you know, this war is to protect them. And inevitably, Gaara and Naruto go out. Naruto would outspeed the Raikage and surpass him, and this would then lead into Naruto and Gaara heading out to go and stop the war. To be honest, I would have Naruto surpass the Raikage similar to how I established in part 1 how Minato defeated him, basically copying his own technique and just making it better. And with that being said, this would then lead into Gaara and Naruto heading out, like I said. However, there is not going to be a reanimated army due to the fact that, 1, Kabuto wouldn't absorb Orochimaru because Orochimaru would still be in prison. 2, he would never probably encounter Yamato, or they would never even be in that position to be captured in the first place. And 3, Kabuto kind of smells. Anyways, this would lead into not a reanimated army, but just the Akatsuki, Zetsu, and Kabuto basically facing off as the final villains. And we could have Sasuke and Itachi have their final battle here, and Itachi explain to Sasuke as to why he did what he did. And with this, Sasuke would then be granted the Mangekyo Sharingan. I think maybe we can give him Itachi's eyes. Maybe Itachi, before he dies, would give him his eyes, meaning we can have the EMS. And with this, we would get Naruto versus Obito inevitably, with Gaara backing Naruto up, while Naruto would scatter a few shadow clones around the map to basically help out and turn the tides against the war. And as for the Raikage, I'm going to have the Raikage have that revenge plotline like I always have him in other What Ifs, so he'll basically go out and kill Kisame personally. And as for Obito, like I said, Naruto and Gaara are facing off against them until Kakashi, Guy, and Minato and Sasuke arrive. With them on Naruto's side, I mean, Naruto alone could probably defeat Obito by copying his phasing ability, but with Minato here, we can have the father-son duo along with Kakashi backing them up and countering Kamui and Guy and Gaara and Sasuke to defeat Obito. And when Obito is revealed to be, you know, Obito, Minato and Kakashi are shocked, but they decide to put the past behind them and defeat him. Or, to be honest, you could have Obito being Takuno Jutsu'd, but I don't know. I'd rather have Obito just die here, but you could make the argument that Minato would try and Takuno Jutsu Obito, and Obito would join the good guy's side and basically be in prison in due time. But I'm gonna say Obito dies. And with this, the war arc is wrapped up, and all of Shippuden is just overall easier for our characters, especially Naruto, because of his broken ability. But yeah, with that being said, this is going to be concluding our What If Naruto Had Eyes of the Lord What If. And if you guys want more What Ifs like this, let me know down below, and be sure to comment these type of What Ifs or whatever. And be sure to like the video, and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're new. Please subscribe, man. Majority of my viewers aren't even subscribed, and they just find my videos through browsing. Like, bro, subscribe. You like what you see. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tylearn. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, etc., etc., etc. And I'm going to catch you on the next video. Peace out, guys.